Welcome to Dear Book Coach. I'm Terry Thayer, author, certified focusing professional, certified book coach.
I am Carrie Savage, a writer and certified book coach.
And I'm Stephanie Detlefs, writer and certified book coach.
This is a friendly advice space for you as you plan, draft, and revise your novel. In each video, we answer a question submitted by a writer like you from 3 points of view, and you get to pick the advice that works from you. Today's question came from Facebook from Amy Craig, author of A Winter Rose, coming out July 28th. What makes a character likable and relatable? Do you have a checklist, mental or physical? Do small flaws build empathy, or do you prefer a heart-shattering burden? Are the rules different for heroes and villains? Carrie.
This is such a good and such a loaded question. I think, my mind went straight to female character likability, and that's not what you're asking about specifically here. So I know we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I'm going to kind of stay away from that for the moment. But I do want to note that there are some really great essays out there on this very topic of female likability. So you can Google, like Claire Massoud and Roxane Gay have written some really interesting things on this. Jennifer Weiner, I just found yesterday, had written a defense of likability. So there's a lot to unpack around the gender question. And we're not going to do that right now, at least with me. We're going to kind of stick to the more gender neutral, or my thoughts on that. So I do think that, as a writer, my goal for my characters is relatability more than likability. I think you really want to think about whether your writers or your readers can empathize with your characters. You want them to be able to connect with them at least a little bit. I had an interesting experience with one of the characters in my novel that I absolutely loved. I still do love her. She's super fun to write. I think she's really interesting. I just have a great time anytime I engage with her on the page. When I gave my writing group the first set of pages that really had a lot of, she's not my protagonist, but she's a very important character. They hated her, could not understand why my protagonist would be interested in spending time with her, never mind becoming her best friend, which she does. So my takeaway from that was not that I needed to make her more likable, but that I needed to do a better job of helping the reader understand why the protagonist liked her and was interested in her character. And by that, I think I just needed to make her more human. She was too flat on the page still. She was too one note. And that was, I think, an instance of me as the writer knowing in my head that she was this amazing woman and super interesting and feisty and fun and everything, but all she came across on the page was angry and really, really unlikable. But the group wasn't saying, don't make her likable. They're saying, we want to understand why someone would want to spend time with this person, because she's just not fun to be around in any way, shape, or form. What does anyone get from that? So that's where I think you really need to, that's your touchstone, is empathy and relatability rather than likability, to me. I don't tend to think in terms of checklists, small flaws versus big, or heroes versus villains per se. I'm sure that those are things that for some writers, could be a useful way to sort of flesh out characters. That's just not how I think about it. And I think that's maybe a little bit more of a process kind of thing. But I do tend to think about what each character represents and the traits and the characters that they embody that demonstrate what I'm trying to use them to show. So that's sort of what my sort of first take on that is. Stephanie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, Carrie, and my thoughts are right along the same lines. It's a hard one to answer when it comes to likability, and I fully agree. Likability and relatability are two very different things. And I would actually encourage you to completely not worry about likability, because the truth is, I like some people and I don't like other people. Yet other people might like the people that I don't like. And that's just humanity, right? We don't always like the same things. And so you can't shoot for that. But what you can shoot for is relatability, like Carrie was saying. I think that the key to relatable relatable characters is that they're three-dimensional. Often, especially with side characters, we tend to lean into flat, stereotypical, two-dimensional tropes, right? So we might have a popular girl who's super stuck up and mean to everyone, or we might have the cocky boy who's a jock, or, you know, like those kinds of stereotypes. And then everything we give them to do falls into that. And I think that's not relatable, because most humans are not one thing or the other. The most important thing is to consider what makes them a good person and what makes them flawed. I know that I'm a good person overall, but I also know that I'm flawed. I don't want to read about someone who's perfect in every way. I want to read about someone who isn't. And the opposite might be, I don't want to read about a villain, and I'll talk about villains in a second. I don't want to read about a villain who has zero redeemable qualities. That's not interesting to me. I want to see the possibility of redemption within them, even if they don't ever go there. So, you know, sociopaths and psychopaths are interesting from a mental health standpoint, from a psychological standpoint. But I think that when a villain rides the line between good and evil, kind of in that gray zone, it makes them more unpredictable and therefore more interesting. And so you can make even that relatable. You know, will they see the light and change their ways, or won't they? You can have a little bit of hope for that. We've all said in past videos that the best way to make a character three-dimensional is to embody them as much as you can in your own mind. So get yourself into the character's skin and get to know them and how they see the world the best that you can. And I would refer you back to past videos that we've done about character development. Terry's done some great focusing work with that, and that is my advice for today. Terry?
Yeah, well, while we're on the subject of villains, you know, villains are the heroes of their own stories. They have reasons for everything that they do, and to them, it all makes perfect sense. They have their backstory, their misbeliefs. I've heard actors say that they must find the humanity in a bad guy in order to play him with depth. And I think, like in a movie, you can really tell. So just remember that everyone, even the villain, has their own ideas of what they're doing. You know, Carrie hit on this misogyny thing that triggered for me too, this idea, especially women being called unlikable, and men, the same men doing the same things, being called anti-heroes and being admired. So just watch out for that. You know, there's a double standard out there, and we're not going to beat that horse, but just to know that sometimes unlikable is code word for a woman doing stuff that somebody thinks she shouldn't be doing. So, and again, I also say, you know, we relate to people who are flawed, like Stephanie said, and all of our characters need flaws, small and large. Your readers are human, and humans are flawed. It's not interesting to read about people who do the right thing all the time. We as readers don't learn a thing about human nature or our own lives if our characters are upright citizens of the world. Your characters are in the middle of a struggle, and so they might act in ways that don't serve them all the time, or anyone else for that matter. But if they're doing something unlikable, if we know their reason for doing it, a deep reason, not just, you know, a surface reason, but a character can be forgiven for the biggest sin, like killing someone if their child is in danger, or, you know, a host of other reasons. So we relate to people doing even the most horrific things as long as we know why. I would say forget about likable, relatable, make your characters unforgettable. And you do that by putting them in situations that test their mettle again and again. Show us who they are, show us their triumphs, their defeats, so that we as readers put down the book knowing a little bit more about our lives. So that's it. from me anyhow. I'll stay off the misogyny train for now.
It's hard not to go there.
Yeah, it's such a potent one. I really love that, Terry, about like forget about sort of relatability and likability and just focus on making them unforgettable, make them unique, make them three-dimensional. And I think, you know, that will go a long, long way. So that is it for today. We hope you found an answer that made sense to you at this point in your life and at this point in your book. Remember that you can submit your question anytime at dearbookcoach.com, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.